In a coordinate plane, what is the distance between point A, 4, 9, and B, 15, 18? Well, there's a very straightforward way to answer this question. If we want to find the distance between 2 points in a coordinate plane, then we need to use the distance formula. The distance formula is the square root of x2 minus x1 squared plus y2 minus y1 squared. And the x2, y2, x1, y1, those are just the coordinates of your ordered pairs. For instance, this is my first ordered pair. So this will be my x1, y1. This is my second ordered pair. So this is my x2, y2. Now all we need to do is substitute. So distance equals the square root of x2 is 15 minus x1 is 4 squared plus y2 is 18 minus y1 is 9 squared. And now we need to follow our order of operations, which means grouping symbols first. So distance equals the square root of 15 minus 4 is 11 squared plus 18 minus 9 is 9 squared. Next, our order of operations tells us to take care of our exponents. So the distance equals the square root of 11 squared is 11 times 11, which is 121, plus 9 squared is 9 times 9, or 81. Then we need to add. So the distance equals the square root of 121 plus 81, which is 202. And 202 is not a perfect square, so if I take the square root of it, I'm going to get an irrational number, a decimal that just keeps on going. So our answer is simply the square root of 202. Solve for y using the following system of equations. 2x minus 6y equals 12. Negative 6x plus 4y equals 42. There are several ways to solve a system of equations. What you need to keep in mind is that what you're doing is finding where these two lines intersect on a graph. So you can graph, that's one way to solve a system, is to graph both the lines and see where they intersect. And then in this case, just give the y coordinate. But you can also use substitution or elimination. And it's really your choice which one seems the best for the situation. In this situation, elimination seems to be the easiest choice. Because if I multiply this top equation by 3, I'll have a positive 6x term and a negative 6x term that will eliminate, thus allowing me to solve for y. So I'm going to multiply this entire top equation by 3. 3 times 2x is 6x. 3 times negative 6y is negative 18y. And 3 times 12 is 36. Now I'm just going to add these two equations together. Negative 6x and 6x is 0. They cancel. 14y and negative 18y is negative 4y. Bring down the equals. 42 plus 36 is 78. Then to solve for y, I need to divide both sides by -4. -4 divided by -4 is 1 times y is y equals a positive divided by a negative is a negative. And then I just need to go off to the side and divide 78 by 4. 4 goes into 7 one time. 4 times 1 is 4. You subtracting get 3. Bring down the 8. 4 goes into 38 9 times. 4 times 9 is 36. Subtract and you get 2. Add a decimal, and a 0. Bring it down. And 4 goes into 20 5 times. 4 times 5 is 20. Subtract and you get a remainder of 0. So it's -19 5/10, which is answer A. X squared plus x equals 42. What is the value of x? We need to find what numbers or number will make this equation true. And there are a couple of different options we have, really. But I'm going to show you how to solve for x by factoring. If I want to factor, then the first thing I need to do is move this 42 to the other side. So subtract 42 from both sides of the equation. So I have x squared plus x minus 42 equals 42 minus 42 is 0. Now I'm ready to factor this trinomial. So I start with my parentheses for my two binomials. And I know that the first term of each parentheses is going to be an x, because x times x is x squared. And then to find my second terms, I need to find two numbers that multiply to give me -42 and add to give me a positive 1, because 1 is the coefficient of x. And the two numbers that would multiply to give me a -42 and add to give me a positive 1 are 7 and -6. 7 times -6 is -42, and 7 plus -6 is a positive 1. You can always check your factoring by foiling. X times x is x squared, x times -6 is -6x, plus 7x is x, and 7 times -6 is -42. What I have now is that some number, and I don't know what it is because I don't know what x is yet, but some number times another number is 0. And the only way to multiply two numbers together and get 0 is if one of your numbers is 0. Which means either x plus 7 has to be 0 or x minus 6 has to be 0. And then we just solve for x in each equation. So to solve for x on this one, we need to subtract 7 from both sides. Bring down the x. Plus 7 minus 7 is 0. Bring down your equals. 0 minus 7 is -7. Or to solve for x in our second equation, we need to add 6 to both sides. -6 plus 6 is 0, so x equals 0 plus 6 is 6, which means x is -7 or it is 6, and that's answer C. Which of the following lines is parallel to the line y equals 3x minus 12? This equation is in slope-intercept form, which is y equals mx plus b, where the m is the slope of the line. The slope of our line is 3, and b is the y-intercept of the line. and our y-intercept is negative 12. Now for lines to be parallel, they must have the same slope, but different y-intercepts. So we're looking for a line that has a slope of 3, but does not have a y-intercept of negative 12. So maybe we just put a slash that equals sign. We do not want a y-intercept that equals negative 12. Let's look at B first, because B is in slope-intercept form. Y equals mx plus b. As you can see, our m, negative 1/3, is not the same as our m from our original line. And again, m stands for slope, and our slopes have to be equal for our lines to be parallel. Since this slope is negative 1/3, it is not parallel to our line. So we've already eliminated one answer choice. Now let's look at C. This equation is not in slope-intercept form. It's in standard form, which is, well, close to standard form. It's by minus ax equals c. And since it's not in slope-intercept form, we do not know the slope of this line. But we can find the slope of this line by transforming it. The first thing we need to do is add 36x to both sides. So we bring down our 12y, our negative 36x and our positive 36x cancels. We bring down our equals. These are not like terms, so we can't combine them. We just write them down. So positive 36x minus 144. Finally, we need to divide by 12 to solve for y. 12 divided by 12 is 1, times y is y, equals 36x divided by 12 is 3x, and negative 144 divided by 12 is negative 12. Now this looks familiar. It's in fact the exact same equation as our original line. Great, then it's parallel, right? No, they're the same line, so they can't be parallel to each other because parallel lines never intersect. But these lines are going to intersect each other an infinite number of times because they're the same line. They have the same slope and the same y-intercept. So this is also not our line that's parallel to our original line. Now let's look at D. Again, it's not in slope-intercept form. So we have to solve for y in order to find out what our slope and y-intercept is. So we want to subtract 3x from both sides and subtract 12 from both sides. So we have y, positive 3x, negative 3x cancels, positive 12, negative 12 cancels, equals negative 3x minus 12. So first we look at our slopes. The slope of this line is negative 3, which is not the same as the slope of our line, which means they're not parallel. So it doesn't even matter what our y-intercept is. We know D is not our answer. Well, we're down to our last choice, so hopefully A is going to be parallel. Again, it's not in slope-intercept form, so we have to transform. We need to solve for y by first adding 9x to both sides. So we have 3y, negative 9x plus 9x cancels, equals, these are not like terms, so we can't add them together. We just write them down. 9x minus 12. And finally, to solve for y, we need to divide everything by 3. 3 divided by 3 is 1. 1 times y is y, equals 9x divided by 3 is 3x, and negative 12 divided by 3 is negative 4. So now we found a line that has the same slope as our line, but a different y-intercept. This one's negative 4, instead of negative 12. So we found our parallel line. Simplify the following expression. The quantity 2x to the 4th cubed plus 2 times the quantity y to the 5th raised to the 5th power. We have to use our rules of exponents here, and our rules tell us that whatever is inside the parentheses must be raised to the exponent outside that parentheses. So we have 2 cubed times x to the 4th cubed. So when we raise an exponent to an exponent, we multiply those exponents together. Plus 2, and then again we have y to the 5th raised to the 5th. So another exponent raised to an exponent, and when you have an exponent raised to an exponent, those must be multiplied together. So y to the 5 times 5. And now we can simplify this. 2 cubed means 2 times itself 3 times, not 2 times 3. So it's 2 times 2 times 2. 2 times 2 is 4, times 2 is 8. So 2 cubed is 8 times x to the 4 times 3 is 12 plus 2 times y to the 5 times 5 is the 25th power, which is answer choice D. Solve for y in the following inequality. Negative 2y is greater than or equal to 24 plus 6. So the first thing we want to do is combine these like terms, 24 plus 6. So we have negative 2y is greater than or equal to, and 24 plus 6 is 30. To solve for y, we need to divide by a negative 2. Since we have negative 2 times y, to undo that and get y alone, we divide both sides by negative 2. Negative 2 divided by negative 2 is 1, and 1 times y leaves us with just y. Now, since we divided both sides by a negative, we have to flip our inequality sign. It was greater than or equal to, so now it's less than or equal to. And 30 divided by a negative 2, a positive number divided by a negative number is a negative number, and 30 divided by 2 is 15. That means that y is less than or equal to negative 15, which is answer choice C. If 2x plus 5x equals 3x plus x plus 30, what is the value of x? So first I'm going to combine like terms on both sides of the equal sign. On the left side, I can combine 2x plus 5x to give me 7x. Bring down this equal sign, and on the right side, we can combine 3x plus x. So 3x plus another x gives us 4x. And then bring down the plus 30. Next, we need to get all of our x terms on the same side of the equal sign. We'll do this by subtracting 4x from both sides. 7x minus 4x is 3x. Bring down the equals. 4x minus 4x cancels, they're additive inverses, and we bring down the positive 30. Finally, we need to divide both sides by 3. 3 divided by 3 is 1, and 1 times x is simply x. So x equals 30 divided by 3, which is 10. And that's answer choice D. What is the value of 6 factorial? What 6 factorial means is 6 times 5 times 4 times 3 times 2 times 1. And so since we're just multiplying a series of numbers, you can multiply them in any order you want. So you can take any 2 numbers and multiply those together first, and then continue multiplying. But I'll just multiply them in order. So we have 6 times 5, which is 30, times 4, times 3, times 2, times 1. Then we can multiply 30 times 4. We have 30, 60, 90, 120. So 30 times 4 is 120, times 3, times 2, times 1. Then 120 times 3, 120 times 3. 3 times 0 is 0. 3 times 2 is 6. 3 times 1 is 3. So 360 times 2 times 1. 360 times 2. 2 times 0 is 0. 2 times 6 is 12. Carry the 1. 2 times 3 is 6. Plus 1 is 7. So 720 times 1. And 720 times 1 is just 720. So 6 factorial is equal to 720. Answer C. Simplify the following expression. The quantity 2x minus 20 times the quantity 5x plus 10. To multiply these 2 binomials, we can use a method called FOIL. And FOIL stands for first, O stands for outer, I stands for inner, and L stands for last. So the F first means to multiply the first term in the first binomial times the first term in the second binomial. First times first. 2x times 5x. 2 times 5 is 10. And x times x is x squared. So it's 10x squared. The O again stands for outer. So that means to multiply the 2 outside terms. So 2x and 10 are the 2 terms on the outside, the outer terms. So 2x times 10, 2 times 10 is 20, 2x times 10 is 20x. I stands for inner. That means to multiply the 2 terms on the inside. So that would be this negative 20 times 5x. Negative 20 times 5x. A negative times a positive is a negative. 20 times 5x is 100x. Then finally, we multiply the last terms together. So that means the last term in the first set of parentheses or in the first binomial times the last term in the second binomial. Last times last. So that's negative 20 times 10, which is negative 200. A negative times a positive is a negative. We're almost done. The last thing we need to do is combine these like terms right here. 20x and negative 100x. So it's really 20x minus 100x. Bring down the 10x squared first. And 20x minus 100x would be negative 80x. Then bring down the negative 200. So looking at our answer choices, looks like answer A would be the correct answer. the quantity y plus 10 squared minus 625 equals 0. Solve for y. The first thing we want to do is add 625 to both sides, because doing that is going to help us get y alone and thus solve for it. So we bring down our quantity y plus 10 squared. Negative 625 plus 625 is 0, so that just cancels out. And that equals 0 plus 625, which is 625. Well, then we want to get rid of this squared because our y is kind of locked in those parentheses. So to unlock them, we want to do the opposite of squaring, which is square rooting. So we square root both sides. And the square root and the square undo each other. They're the exact opposites of each other. So they cancel each other out, and we're just left with y plus 10 equals, and when I take the square root of 625, I get plus or minus 25. And that's because a positive 25 squared would give me 625, but also a negative 25 squared would give me 625. So we really have two answers there. So we write it with a plus or minus. And finally, to solve for y, we need to subtract 10 from both sides. So we have y plus 10 minus 10 is 0, so equals negative 10 plus or minus 25. We have two answers, and to find them, we just need to simplify. So we have y equals negative 10 plus 25, and y equals negative 10 minus 25. All I did was separate the plus or the minus into two separate expressions. Negative 10 plus 25 is 15, while negative 10 minus 25 is negative 35. So our solutions are that y is 15 or negative 35, which is answer D. If y equals 2, what is the value of the following expression? The quantity y to the 9th divided by y cubed times 2. The first thing we need to do is substitute 2 for y in our expression. So it becomes 2 to the 9th divided by 2 cubed, and that quantity times 2. And what I want to do is rewrite it. I prefer my fractions to be stacked, so I'm going to rewrite this as 2 to the 9th divided by 2 cubed times 2. When we're dividing and we have our bases the same, so in this case 2 is our base and it's the same, we simply subtract our exponents. 9 minus 3 is 6, so that's 2 to the 6th times 2. 2 to the 6th is 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 times 2. So 2 times itself 6 times, and then times 2. So all we have to do is multiply all these 2's. 2 times 2 is 4, 2 times 2 is 4, 2 times 2 is 4, and then times 2. 4 times 4 is 16, times, and 4 times 2 is 8. So now I just need to multiply 16 times 8. 8 times 6 is 48, carry the 4. 8 times 1 is 8, plus 4 is 12. So it's 128. Solve for x in the following inequality. 4x plus 23 is greater than negative 3x minus 6. The first thing we want to do is get all of our x terms on the same side of the inequality. I'm going to do this by adding 3x to both sides. 4x plus 3x is 7x. Bring down the plus 23. And bring down the greater than sign. Negative 3x plus 3x, those are additive inverses, so they cancel. Bring down the negative 6. Next, we want to remove 23. The opposite of adding 23 is subtracting 23. So subtract 23 from both sides. Bring down the 7x. Plus 23 and negative 23 are additive inverses, so they cancel. Bring down the greater than sign. Negative 6 and negative 23, they have the same signs, they're both negative, which means our answer is negative, and we just add the numbers together. 23 plus 6 is 29, so it's negative 29. Finally, we have to divide both sides by 7. 7 divided by 7 is 1, and 1 times x is simply x. Bring down the greater than sign. And then the first thing I'll do is change this into a mixed number, since I can't actually divide negative 29 by 7 and get an integer. So 7 goes into negative 29 4 times. So it's negative 4. 4 times 7 is 28. So that means that there's 1 left over out of 7. So it's negative 4 and 1/7. X is greater than negative 4 and 1/7. Now if we look at the answers, you'll see that all the answers are in decimal form. And we can find out what 1/7 is as a decimal by dividing. So 7 doesn't go into 1, so we'll have to put a decimal here, which means bring a decimal to the top and add a 0 to it. 7 does go into 10 one time. 7 times 1 is 7. We subtract and we get 3. Add another 0, bring it down, and 7 goes into 30 4 times. 7 times 4 is 28. We subtract and we get 2. And we can stop there because all of our answers stop at the hundredths place as well. So we could write this as x is greater than negative 4 and 14 hundredths, which is answer choice A. Simplify the following expression. 16m to the 16th, y to the 4th, z to the 6th, divided by 8m to the 8th, y squared, z cubed, all raised to the 4th power. First, we want to simplify before we raise to the 4th power. So we're going to start with dividing 16 by 8, which is 2. Then m to the 16th divided by m to the 8th is m to the 16 minus 8. Since when you divide like bases, you subtract the exponents. Y to the 4th divided by y squared is y to the 4 minus 2. And z to the 6th divided by z cubed is z to the 6 minus 3. Now we need to simplify our exponents. So we have 2m to the 16 minus 8, 8, y to the 4 minus 2, 2, and z to the 6 minus 3, 3. We have to be very careful to not forget that all of this is supposed to be raised to the 4th power. So we're not done yet. Now we need to raise everything inside our parentheses to the 4th power. So we'll start with 2 to the 4th. Then we have m to the 8th raised to the 4th. We're raising a power to a power, so we must multiply our exponents. So m to the 8 times 4 is 32. Y to the 2 times 4 is 8. And z to the 3 times 4 is 12. Finally, we need to simplify 2 to the 4th. 2 to the 4th means to multiply 2 times itself 4 times. 2 times 2 is 4, times 2 is 8, times 2 is 16. So 2 times itself 4 times is 16. M to the 32nd, y to the 8th, z to the 12th. So our answer is answer choice D. Simplify the following expression. 64x to the 4th plus 8x cubed minus 4x squared plus 16x, all divided by 8x. So really what we have here is 4 separate fractions. I'm going to break this up. 64x to the 4th divided by 8x plus 8x cubed divided by 8x minus 4x squared divided by 8x plus 16x divided by 8x. Every single term is divided by 8x. So now we can take each one of these individually and divide by 8x. 64 divided by 8 is 8. And x to the 4th divided by x, well, let's see what that looks like. X to the 4th divided by x is x times x times x times x, x times itself 4 times, x to the 4th, divided by x. X divided by x is 1, so those cancel. And what you're left with is x cubed. So x to the 4th divided by x is x cubed. Plus 8 divided by 8 is 1 times, and then we do the same thing with x cubed divided by x. So x cubed divided by x would be x times x times x divided by x. X divided by x is 1, so you're left with x times x, x squared. Minus 4 divided by 8. 4 can't really be divided by 8, but we can simplify 4/8 as 1/2. And then x squared divided by x. You may have noticed from these two examples before that when we divide by x, what we're doing, or really when we divide at all, what we're doing is subtracting the exponents. So x to the 4th minus x to the 1st, or x to the 4 minus 1, x cubed. So here we have x to the 3 minus 1, x squared. So now we have x squared minus 1, or just x, plus 16 divided by 8 is 2, and x divided by x is 1. So our answer is 8x cubed plus x squared minus 1/2 x plus 2, which is answer B. If 2x squared equals negative 4x squared plus 216, what is the value of x? I'm going to start by rewriting this problem so I have a little more room to work with it. And if we're trying to solve for x, then we'll need to get all our x's together. So I'm going to add 4x squared to both sides so that way on the right-hand side it'll cancel because I have a negative 4x squared and a positive 4x squared, and those are additive inverses. Now on the left-hand side, 2x squared plus 4x squared is 6x squared. Bring down the equal sign and bring down 216. So this is 6 times x squared. So to get rid of this 6, we do the opposite of multiplying, which is dividing. Divide both sides by 6. 6 divided by 6 is 1, and 1 times x squared is simply x squared. So those 6's cancel. And that equals, and now we can take 216 and divide it by 6. 6 does not go into 2, but it does go into 21. And 6 times 3 is 18. It goes in 3 times and we get 18. 21 minus 18 is 3. We bring down the 6. And 6 goes into 36 6 times. 6 times 6 is 36. So when we subtract, we get a 0 remainder. So that means that 216 divided by 6 is 36. So now we know what x squared equals, but we still haven't found what x equals. So to get x alone, we need to do the opposite of squaring x. And the opposite of squaring is to square root. So we square root both sides. The square root of x squared is simply x. And the square root of 36 is 6. So that means that x is 6. Answer C. Which of the following lines is perpendicular to the line y equals negative 5x plus 27? Perpendicular lines have opposite reciprocal slopes. The slope in this equation is negative 5. Because this equation is in slope-intercept form, which is y equals mx plus b, where the m is the slope. So the slope of this line is negative 5. The slope of a line that's perpendicular to this line would have an opposite reciprocal slope. Opposite meaning opposite sign. So instead of negative, the slope will be positive. And then reciprocal, meaning simply to flip the fraction. So this is 5 over 1. The reciprocal would be 1/5. And again, it's a positive 1/5 because it has to be the opposite. So negative 5 over 1, the opposite reciprocal is positive 1/5. Looking at the answer choices, the only line with a slope of positive 1/5 is answer choice C. So that's the line that's perpendicular to our original line. Expand the following expression. The quantity 2x minus 5 times the quantity x plus 7. And we know it's multiplication because there is no other operator symbol between these two sets of parentheses. There's no addition sign or subtraction or division, which means it's automatically and it's simply understood that we're multiplying these two binomials together. And a binomial just means two terms. So I'm going to use FOIL to help us multiply these binomials. And FOIL is just kind of an easier way to remember what to do when you're multiplying these binomials. The F stands for first, O outer, I inner, and L last. So we start with F first. And that F tells you to multiply the first terms in each set of parentheses. So that's 2x times x. those are the first terms in each set of parentheses. 2x times x is 2x squared. The O stands for outer or outside. So now we're going to multiply the two outside terms. And that's 2x and positive 7. Those are on the outside. 2x times 7 is 14x. So plus 14x. I stands for inner or inside. Negative 5 and x are the two inside terms. Negative 5 times x is negative 5x. Finally, L, last. We now multiply the last terms in each set of parentheses together. Negative 5 and 7 are the last terms in each set of parentheses. A negative 5 times a positive 7 is a negative 35. But we aren't finished yet because we have like terms that we can combine and should. So we're going to bring down the 2x squared and then combine positive 14x and negative 5x. 14x minus 5x is 9x. So plus 9x minus 35. And that gives you answer choice A. (7m plus 43 equals 160. What is the value of m? So first I'm going to rewrite my equation. 7m plus 43 equals 160. We want to know what number multiplied times 7 with 43 added to that would give us 160. And we could guess and check numbers until we found a number that would satisfy this equation. But there's a much easier and more direct way. And that is to undo the operations that are done to our variable m. We're going to start by undoing the addition of 43. So we're going to subtract 43 from both sides. And as long as we do that to both sides, we keep our equation equal and balanced. If you have something that's equal to something else, and you take away the same amount from both of those things, then they'll still be equal to each other. So we bring down the 7m. Positive 43 minus 43 is 0, so those cancel. And we bring down the equals, and then we have to subtract. And I can't take 3 from 0, so I'll borrow from the 6, that's a 5. Then I have 10 minus 3 is 7, 5 minus 4 is 1, and I bring down my 1 because 1 minus 0 is 1. So 117. Now I have to undo this 7 times m, and the opposite of multiplying times 7 is dividing by 7. 7 divided by 7 is 1, and 1 times m is m. 117 divided by 7, I'm not sure what that is, so I'm going to divide off to the side. 7 goes into 11 one time. 7 times 1 is 7. When you subtract, you get 4. And then we bring down the 7. 7 goes into 47 6 times. 7 times 6 is 42. We subtract and we get 5. Then we add a decimal and a 0 and bring it down. 7 goes into 50 7 times. 7 times 7 is 49. We subtract and we get 1. We add a 0 and bring it down. 7 goes into 10 one time. 7 times 1 is 7. we subtract and we get 3. And we could keep going, but really that's all I need to find my answer. The 1 tells the 7 to stay the same if we're rounding to the tenths place. So our answer is 16 and 7/10, which is answer choice B. If 2x equals 5x minus 30, what is the value of x? The first thing we want to do to solve for x is to get all of our x terms on the same side of the equal sign. We have 2x on the left side of the equal sign, and we have 5x on the right side of the equal sign. We have two options here. We can either subtract 2x from both sides, and that way we would get rid of 2x on the left side, or we can subtract 5x from both sides and get rid of 5x on the right side. I'm going to subtract 5x from both sides. This is called the subtraction property of equality. Because I have the left side equal to the right side, then I could subtract the same thing from both sides, and they'll still be equal. 2x minus 5x is negative 3x. We bring down our equal sign. 5x minus 5x is 0 because those are additive inverses. So we've canceled that out. And what we have left on the right side is negative 30. Now we have negative 3 times x is equal to negative 30. So to solve for x, we need to do the opposite of multiplying by a negative 3, which is dividing both sides by a negative 3. Negative 3 divided by negative 3 is 1. And 1 times x is just x. So we have x equals negative 30 divided by negative 3. A negative divided by a negative is a positive. And 30 divided by 3 is 10. So x equals 10, which is answer choice A. If 25% of x is 250, what is the value of x? We're going to start by decoding this sentence. We're going to translate it into a math equation. It says 25% of x. And this word of tells us to multiply. So I'm going to put a little multiplication dot above it. So we're going to multiply 25% and x. Is a very important word in math because is an equal sign. So wherever you see that word is, you can put an equal sign there. And now we can take this and write our equation. So 25% times x, we have to take our percent and change it into a decimal. So 25%, the decimal's behind it, and you move it 2 places to the left to change a percent into a decimal. So that's 25 hundredths times x, or just 25 hundredths x, is or equals 250. Now that we've written our equation, we just need to solve. So this is 25 hundredths times x. To solve for x, we do the opposite of multiplying, and we divide both sides by 25 hundredths. So 25 hundredths divided by 25 hundredths is 1, and 1 times x is simply x. So those cancel out. We bring down the equal sign, and if you have a calculator, of course you can divide that in a calculator, but I'm going to work it out off to the side. So we have 250 divided by 25 hundredths. We can't divide by a decimal, so we need to move the decimal 2 places to the right, which means we do the same with our number under our division sign. So we have to add 2 zeros to it. And now we can divide. 25 goes into 25 one time. 25 times 1 is 25, and we subtract and get 0. We bring down a 0, and 25 goes into 0 times. And that's going to keep happening for each one of these zeros. We're going to keep bringing down zeros, and we're going to keep getting zeros. So we end up with x is 1,000. Now, if that's a little confusing to you, you can do it one other way. So you can rewrite this as 250 divided by, and then 25 hundredths is 1/4. So it's 250 divided by 1/4, which still might look a little confusing, but we can even rewrite that to 250 divided by 1/4. And then we can copy, change, flip. We can copy 250, change division to multiplication, and flip 1/4 to be 4. 250 times 4 is 1,000, which is the same thing we got when we divided with our decimal. So either way, the answer is 1,000. And if you put that back into the sentence, it makes sense. 25% of 1,000 is 250. A rectangular prism measures 12 centimeters by 3 centimeters by 9 centimeters. What is its volume? The formula for volume for a rectangular prism is volume equals length times width times height. And we were given those dimensions: length, width, and height. And really, it doesn't matter which one is the length, which one's the width, and which one's the height, since we're just going to multiply those three numbers together anyway. So the volume is 12 centimeters times 3 centimeters times 9 centimeters. And it's up to you which two you choose to multiply together first. You could start with 12 times 3. 3 times 2 is 6, and 3 times 1 is 3. So 12 centimeters times 3 centimeters is 36 centimeters squared times 9 centimeters. So then you could take 36 times 9. 9 times 6 is 54. 9 times 3 is 27, plus 5 is 32. So 36 centimeters squared times 9 centimeters is 324 centimeters cubed, which is answer choice C. Simplify the following expression: 16x cubed minus 32x squared plus 8x, all divided by 4x. We need to divide each one of these terms by 4x. So the first thing I'm going to do is rewrite this as 3 separate fractions. And now we can simplify. 16 divided by 4 is 4. X cubed divided by x is x squared. Because when you divide, you subtract the exponents. 3 minus 1 is 2. Minus 32 divided by 4 is 8. X squared divided by x, 2 minus 1, is x to the first. Plus 8 divided by 4 is 2. And x divided by x, or x to the first divided by x to the first, 1 minus 1 is 0. Or you can just think x, or anything really, divided by itself is 1. So x divided by itself is 1, and 1 times 2 is 2. So our answer is C. If a circle has a diameter of 12 centimeters, what is its area? The formula for area of a circle is pi times radius squared. We need to know what the radius of our circle is. We're given diameter, which is 12 centimeters. The diameter is twice the radius, or the radius is half of the diameter. So half of 12 centimeters would be 6 centimeters. So that means our radius is 6 centimeters. So we take our radius and substitute it into our formula. So area is pi times 6 centimeters squared. So the area is 6 squared, 36, pi centimeters squared. But if we look at our answers, none of our answers have pi in them. So that means that these answers are multiplied times pi. If you have a calculator, then you can just multiply 36 times pi in the calculator. But if you don't have a calculator, then pi is approximately 3 14/14. So take 3 14/14 and multiply that times 36. 6 times 4 is 24. Write the 4, carry the 2. 6 times 1 is 6, plus 2 is 8. 6 times 3 is 18. Get rid of that. Put a 0 placeholder to move on to the 3. 3 times 4 is 12. Write the 2 and carry the 1. 3 times 1 is 3, plus 1 is 4. And 3 times 3 is 9. Now add these up. 4 plus 0 is 4. 8 plus 2 is 10. Write the 0, carry the 1. 8, 9 plus 4 is 13. Write the 3, carry the 1. 9, 10, 11. Now, we have two numbers behind the decimal place in our numbers we multiplied together, so that means that our product must also have two numbers behind the decimal place. So our answer would be 113 centimeters squared, which is answer choice B. In the following equation, solve for x by factoring. 2x squared minus 7x equals x squared minus 12. In order to factor, we need to get all of our terms on the same side. So that means subtracting an x squared from both sides so that we have x squared now minus 7x, and then adding 12 to both sides. So now this is plus 12 equals 0. Now we're ready to factor. So I have a binomial and a binomial equals 0. I know my first two terms are going to be, or my first term in each binomial, because x times x gives me x squared. To find these second numbers in each binomial, these numbers must be factors of 12 that add to be negative 7. Let's start by looking at the factors of 12. 1 and 12 are factors of 12. 2 and 6 are factors of 12. And also 3 and 4 are factors of 12. Now again, these numbers have to add to give us a negative 7 while also multiplying to give us a positive 12. The only way these numbers can do both those things is if they're both negative. Because a negative times a negative will give us the positive 12, but when we add the two negatives together, we'll get our negative 7. So negative 1 and negative 12, that's negative 13, not negative 7. Doesn't work. Negative 2 and negative 6 is negative 8, not negative 7. Doesn't work. But negative 3 and negative 4 does give me negative 7. So I found my numbers, negative 3 and negative 4. And then if you just FOIL, you can check your answer to see if it's correct. So we do first times first, x times x, x squared. Outer, x times negative 4 is negative 4x. Then the inner, negative 3 times x, negative 3x. So you have negative 4x plus negative 3x, which is the middle term, negative 7x. And then finally the last, negative 3 times negative 4, which is a positive 12. So now we've checked and we know that we factored correctly. But we still haven't solved for x. Here we have two expressions that we're multiplying together, and that gives us 0. The only way you can multiply two numbers together and get 0 is if one of them is 0. So that means that either x minus 3 must be 0 or x minus 4 must be 0. And now we just solve each equation. So add 3 and 3. Those cancel because they're additive inverses, and x equals 3. Or add 4 and add 4, and those cancel because they're additive inverses, and x equals 4. So that means x equals 3 and 4, which is answer B. In the following inequality, solve for x. Negative 4x plus 8 is greater than or equal to 48. To solve for x, we need to get x alone, which means undoing the operations that are being done to x currently. And that is negative 4 times x and plus 8. So we'll start by getting rid of the plus 8. And we can get rid of it by doing the exact opposite of adding 8, subtracting 8. And if we subtract 8 from the left side of our inequality symbol, then we must also subtract 8 from the right side to keep it even. So we bring down our negative 4x. A positive 8 minus 8 is 0, is greater than or equal to 48 minus 8 is 40. And we're almost done. Now we need to undo negative 4 times x. And the opposite of multiplying by a negative 4 is dividing by a negative 4. Now with inequalities, there is a special rule you have to remember. And that is, if you divide both sides by a negative number, or you multiply both sides by a negative number, you have to flip the sign. So now instead of greater than or equal to, our sign is now a less than or equal to sign. And again, that's because we divided both sides by a negative number. Negative 4 divided by negative 4 is 1, and 1 times x is x. 40 divided by negative 4, a positive divided by a negative is a negative, and 40 divided by 4 is 10. So x is less than or equal to negative 10. Answer D.